Welcome to South Shore Piano, the official podcast of the South Shore Piano School. I'm your host, Jonathan Roberts, and on this podcast, we talk with students, parents, teachers, and other leaders to find out exactly how music education is changing lives every day. I'm thrilled to have as my guests today Kyle Wrentz and Healy Sammis. They are the co-founders and directors of Break a Leg Theater Works, based right here in the South Shore in Marshfield, Massachusetts. Did I get that right? Marshfield?
Yes.
Okay.
We were heard.
I mean, we're all over the place, but yeah.
Okay, cool. I wanted to make sure I wasn't off on that. So they're doing some phenomenal things with students ranging in age from age 8 to 18. They produce a wide variety of productions, including cabarets, musical theater, virtual movie experiences. And I'm just so thrilled to talk with them today. Thank you, Kyle and Healy, for joining me today.
Thank you for having us. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's our pleasure. Now, I had my first exposure to you, ironically, during the pandemic. You guys had a virtual holiday production featuring around 50 students, and I was just so impressed by that. And clearly, you're working some true magic with these kids. So I'm really excited to talk with you about how you came to be, your backgrounds, what you do with these students, changing lives every day. So to start with, you probably get this question a lot, but I would love to ask you guys, how did Break a Leg Theater come to be?
Well, actually, believe it or not, Healy and I know each other from a children's theater in 3rd and 4th grade. And
That's amazing.
In that children's theater in Norwalk, Connecticut, and became friends. And actually, that children's theater evolved, and we wound up staying with it until we graduated high school. We also went to the same high school as well. So even though we were in different middle schools, we wound up coming to school together. And so the sentiment of that theater, I think, always stayed with us, and how much fun it was and how validated we felt there. And so when we got the opportunity, we came together, and we always said, we want to do this someday, kind of try something on our own. And then the opportunity kind of came our way.
That's amazing. Was that right here on the South Shore?
Yeah, I had been living in the South Shore and Kyle in New York after a long stint on Broadway. And we had both sort of, every time we talked, we'd say, we should do a theater someday. Yeah, we're going to do it one day. And, we had both sort of gotten to the ends of what we were feeling, our careers at that time. And we're like, let's try to do something. I knew somebody at a storefront down in Plymouth, and we went and we decided to just try a little cabaret. And we started with one small cabaret, not really knowing much what we were doing. But once the kids came into audition, they were astounding. And we got hooked right away. And it grew from there.
That's phenomenal. I'd love to hear a little bit more about your backgrounds. You mentioned that you guys were both in musical or in children's theater growing up. What was that experience like? Like, how would you say that sort of shaped your lives at that point?
Well, we went on Saturdays, if I remember, from like 10 to 2. We pretty much go every Saturday. And at the beginning, I remember it was a lot of like workshops, character building. We played a lot of improv theater games. And we were sort of working towards a show. I think the first show we did was Marlo Thomas' Free to Be You and Me. But, that shows a lot of vignettes. But what was really interesting is they were really getting to know us when we came in. The 3 adults that were running it would, talk to us and really look at us as little individuals, not just children. And they really kind of validated us finding creativity and emotion within. So it felt like a really safe place that then, begins to translate into other aspects of your life, because you get more confident, you're more in touch with your emotions, you are have the ability to work through some of the problems and things. And so that's kind of what it was. I don't think we knew at the time, but it was something you look forward to because you really felt seen and heard.
That's so wonderful, especially how it translates to the other aspects of your life. How about you, Healy?
Yeah, for me, I was painfully shy when I was young. I mean, I'm still shy, but having that Saturday theater group to look forward to and meeting like-minded friends, it just made a world of difference for me. I remember, my relatives and family being very surprised that I did theater, considering how closed off I was, until I got on stage. And it's neat to see that those type of kids. We definitely have, those type of kids in our program now. And I know what confidence instilling it is, or how confidence instilling it is, and how life-changing it can be. So we just had so much fun. And Kyle and I were really were into theater. And in high school, we used to get together with friends and we decide, which Broadway album to put on and play, and which part are you going to play today, or we'd make up choreography. And we just it's just sort of always ran in our blood.
Love it. And what I love about what you said is it sounds like this experience that you had as part of this children's theater group is now being sort of paid forward, because now you're providing that experience for other students. And I'm curious if the folks who taught you when you were kids knew that you were going to grow up to do this. I would imagine that's really cool. Do you stay in touch with the people that worked with you back then?
I had sung at an anniversary a couple years ago when I was able to come back, and I did see them. We haven't seen them in a while since, but the theater is still running, and they're still doing great work, and they're still impacting kids, and it seems to be something that's permanent and a place that students in our hometown still go to. So yeah, I mean, it's wonderful to kind of be aligned and also evolve into the next, to the future with our company.
That's excellent. Now, after just kind of following your timeline, after your children's theater experience, where did your careers go that led you ultimately to starting this awesome nonprofit?
Well, I wanted to study musical theater. Went and got my BFA from the University of Hartford Hart School in theater, and I was blessed to get my professional acting card, my equity card, right away. Went right down to Walt Disney World, singing in a show. And then when I was there, I auditioned for a little show called The Lion King, and I wound up getting cast in the second production in the world, which was like the Pantages Theater in Los Angeles, California. And that began my career with The Lion King, 5 companies over 17 years, and then a lot of regional theater and worldwide theater working in Hong Kong. So a Disney kid, but also a professional actor who went around doing regional theater and just loved it, loved the experience, the people I met from around the world, the work ethic, it was just extraordinary. I feel very, very blessed for the experiences I had through my 20s and 30s. And it was still on Broadway, actually, while this company was being formed. So.
That's awesome. How about you, Healy?
I studied theater at the Tisch School of the Arts in New York City. And then right after I graduated, I moved to Boston, and I was going to stay here temporarily, but I had ended up settling down. I loved Boston when I came. I had met my ex-husband at that time, and I had decided to pursue, motherhood, and I got a career in special education and did that for 15 years. While I was doing that, I did some community theaters, I did some teaching, and then I had a 8-year run at the Medieval Manor up in Boston.
Love it.
Dinner theater. So not as extensive as what Kyle has done, but definitely got a lot of teaching experience over the course of my years.
Very cool. I'm just curious, was there a sort of light bulb moment where you guys were like, okay, it's time for us to try something and see if this is going to work?
Well, I had gotten an injury one time, and my first kind of major injury, and I was in a boot. And finally, I had the time. She kept saying, "Why don't you come up here?" And I said, "Where?" So I came up, and we took the meeting, and then we were told to come up with your contact, come up with a name. So we just were sitting at the her dining room table, and it just began literally like brick by brick. We came up with a name, and what was great is I was able to use a lot of my friends and colleagues and contemporaries that I've met over the years in all the different shows and things on Broadway, who I know love teaching and love sharing their story and sharing their insight, to come up and work with us. So the first show, one of my best friends that actually was my roommate at the time came up to sing, and then another friend from The Lion King came up, and they worked with the kids. That's how we got the first set of kids in the door. And then it just evolved, and we were able to have, I have friends come up who were on tour at the Opera House, or friends, New York is a quick flight away. But even in the beginning, I was commuting back and forth. I mean, there was a point where I had 3 jobs. I was working break a leg. Was still on Broadway, so I had negotiated having every other weekend off for this stint. And she'd pick me up. I would fly in. I was also working at the DOE. Fly in on a Friday night. We would teach all weekend and then get on the first flight back Monday. So it was a lot, but we felt something growing and permeating among the students and the families. So something told us to just keep going.
That's dedication. How did you land on the name? Did it just kind of come to you, or was there something about it that you're just like, oh, this has to be it?
I was Googling and I Googled breakalegtheater.com and I was like, no one owned it. I was like, oh, this is interesting. And we wanted it to be something theater centric. And then, break a leg is, go out there, have a good time, good luck. It's always, when you say that phrase, it's very positive. And so once we
Yes.
kind of both just settled on it, we went with it.
And then Kyle's neighbor from childhood ended up being a logo designer. So he offered to come up with some images. And we'd just given him some ideas of aesthetic, but we had not come up with that logo. That wasn't like at all anything that we'd given him, but it was one of the renderings he had come back with, and we loved it. We loved the logo here with the backwards K as the curtain, because we
Yes,
feel like it represents a lot of theater kids.
definitely.
Quirky,
Oh,
eccentric.
sorry.
No, go ahead.
Oh, no, say what you said again.
I said it represents a lot of our theater kids, quirky and eccentric, but part of the
Being
inclusion.
yourself and being authentic in your own being and learning to celebrate your individuality and knowing that you have a gift and a purpose that's unique to your own and that is unlike anyone else's. So, it's trying to tell them as soon as possible not to worry about comparing their journey as much as living their journey and being present in it.
I love that. Living the journey. I think that should be everybody's motto, especially in the arts. I think there's this perception that you have to be talented, or when people just see the final product, it's like, oh, that person's talented. I can't do this, or my kid can't do this. But there's so much. Would you say there's a whole lot of skill behind the scenes that people don't see leading up to that?
Well, what's extraordinary about the kids is so we have a wide variety of kids. Like anyone is welcome in Break a Leg. But what I love is you'll have some kids who come for the camaraderie. They're really there because they love the community. You have some kids where it's a wonderful hobby that sort of like aligns their week. And then you have some kids who are like, this is what I want to do. Tell me everything you know. I want to have a professional career. And somehow, when they all come together, and it's a beautiful thing because we also combine the ages, you just see that the passion and the love is the community thing that kind of aligns and drives them. And then they start to really share in it together. And I always tell them, I'm like, you just have no idea of your collective power when you're all together because they're so appreciative, especially during this time that we figured out ways to offer programming. They seem to dive in even deeper. So it's just been wonderful to watch and witness.
I love it. So if somebody comes in now, I have what I've seen from the virtual production I watched, and I've looked at the website and stuff like that. But I'd love to hear from you guys. If somebody comes in as, say, an 8-year-old, just have no idea what to expect, what would you say their experience would be like with Break a Leg Theater? Say they come in as an 8-year-old and they stay for like the next 5 to 10 years.
I think, one thing that a lot of the kids tend to say when they talk about Break a Leg is how supportive the environment is. And I attribute that so much to the students that we have. They are so supportive, kind to one another, excited. And kids, I think, I agree with what you said before. A lot of times people feel intimidated to join because they feel that they already need to have that skill. And
Right.
they think they're going to be judged when they come in, and it couldn't be more different. It's a safe place, and everybody always says that word, safe. It's a safe place to fail. And we tell the students that we're meeting you where you're at. And one of the really great pieces of Break a Leg is that we do a lot of cabarets, not just a musical where you have to fit the students and assign them a role. In our cabarets that we do, we get to pick the material that's suited for each individual student. So, someone who's new, maybe they'll just be in a group number and have a little step out solo. We'll push them just as much as they feel comfortable with. But each time it gives us the ability to challenge them, but also not intimidate too much, and to help them grow. So I think, we do have a lot of students who come in new, but they end up staying because it is such a supportive environment. And we had one student who even said, he used to feel bullied because, he was in sports and he wasn't sure about doing theater, and he felt, a little awkward. But once he came to Break Leg, he felt that theater was a superpower. And he learned to embrace it. So having all the other kids attest to that too is very helpful.
I love your choice of words, superpower.
Yeah.
Speaking of superpower, that sort of leads to my next question. We know the arts, whether it be music, theater, painting, whatever, it really transforms lives. And as educators, we get to have kind of a front row seat to that transformation. Are there any stories of students in particular that stick out in your minds? You mentioned the student who was bullied and then sort of found his superpower, his community. Are there any other student stories that kind of stand out in your mind of somebody who came to you and this was truly they're forever changed because of their experience with you guys at Break a Leg?
Well, I'll tell you something that's extraordinary is we have some original company members from our very first show who stayed with us all the way through graduation. Erin Field, who's now our production stage manager, she goes to school at Suffolk, and then Dalton Laterney. They graduated and immediately began working for the nonprofit. And so while they're at school, learning their education and learning more skills, they're immediately applying it to Break a Leg. And so it's a testament to the sense of community that our retention is very, very high, and students are now leaving and saying, how can I still be a part of the organization? And it's across the board with us. And so it's hard to even pick just one story. But I will say that, this year we suffered a loss of a student who was
I'm sorry.
Our family. Yeah. And it really strengthened our resolve into why we're doing what we're doing. And I think it made us just all even more present in the work and more purposeful in realizing that we do this because we love this. This is a place to come and to grow and to try things that scare us a bit. And so it's been sort of overwhelming to sort of see how the love and the passion and how they just seem to like, well, when I'm a senior and you'll be talking to, a sixth grader, and they're forward thinking because they see the examples since our age range is 8 to 18, and it makes them want to stay because they've sort of grown with us.
I love how you mix the different age groups. I think so often in an effort to kind of keep everybody with the same age group. Well, it's what kids are used to in school, right? You're in third grade with all people the same age. Fourth grade, people are all the same age. So sometimes even in the arts, people tend to have, the concert with just the younger kids and then the concert with the older kids. But it sounds like you guys very effectively combine the age groups. What are some of the ways that you do that?
So we love to do cabarets. We love to do themed cabarets because it sort of gives them all an exploration of different genre of music. So yes, they do have shows that they do on their own throughout the year, different musicals, but with the themed cabarets, we're able to combine the ages. So sometimes we're able to even combine material that can work for an older student or a younger student, but there always will be in the collective group numbers together, and they sort of get to watch each other grow. So one of my favorite moments is a while ago, we had a Zoom class, I think a couple weeks ago, and sometimes we'll have master classes where we mix the ages and it'll be a Broadway star teaching. And, it was one of our seniors, and she was speaking to one of our fifth graders, and she said, I am a big fan of yours. I love watching your work. When you sang da 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 da, and it's so amazing to see that relationship, the parallel between the two, and it really, really is remarkable because we were told, oh, you cannot combine the ages, you shouldn't combine the ages, and I was like, well, why not? Who's making up this rule? If they can just be together a couple times throughout the year, and it really has strengthened our collective resolve and our result too.
I love it. So one thing that stood out to me again from that virtual production, because you guys are celebrating 5 years now, right?
Yep.
And I really loved the montage where you brought in, you had, it looks like a bunch of the Broadway and Hollywood stars that have come in to work with your students to say, congratulations on 5 years. And I was so impressed. There's like this guy from this production and this girl from this production. And it just went on and on and on. And I'm like, oh my gosh, these kids get so much exposure to people actually doing the thing out on Broadway. What has the experience been like for those people? Because you've clearly had a lot of them, but what, just reflecting back, how have these people who are doing however many shows a week, how does that sort of change them working with students like this?
For me, the people that have been coming have been people that in my career I've met that I've been friends with. These are friends and people that I'm spiritually aligned with in the passion and the mission of the arts. So these are people that work really, really hard in their craft, but they also want to give back. They want to share that knowledge. And they're also fun and they love working with students. So we've now started to branch out a bit because word of mouth is spreading, and we're getting some guest artists that aren't necessarily friends of mine, which is a testament to our work. But
yes,
in the beginning, it was just bringing people that had a story to share, that also wanted to be authentic and real with the students and talk about their struggles, their triumphs, and also just let them know, hey, I'm a real person. Some days this isn't easy. But some days it is exactly what you imagine the fairy tale of it to be.
Yeah, and I know that they've all seemed to very much appreciate it for the same reason we do. Like they become fans of some of the students that they work with. They become friends on social media. One
awesome.
Student had an audition for Les Miserables and reached out to one of our Eponines who had come, and they had a little moment. And it's very, very sweet, and I think they feel appreciative too, because they see how much the students are eager for it and want to learn and are supportive, and it gives them a sense of being able to give back and purpose too. So they've all seemed to really appreciate it and love it, and have asked to come back to teach more, and are totally on board, and it's been really remarkable.
Remarkable is the word. Yeah. Kyle, you mentioned that, and one thing I love that you said was that there are some moments where these folks you bring in, there's that moment of like, yeah, I'm human. Some days this is hard. And getting back to this sort of perception that people have that there's this sort of magical talent. Do you ever find that in these kids' work with yourselves and with these guests that you bring in, that it sort of breaks that expectation that there's just some magical luckiness or the stars aligned, and that there is actual like daily work that has gone on, and there have been like failed auditions that eventually led up to the one that worked? Have you found that that's made an impact on students' expectations?
Well, because what happens is when the guest artists are here, first they walk in and there's a moment of like magic and allure, like, wow, so and so is really here, because the kids are so Broadway focused, and they know who's coming and they'll do the research. But then we'll have rehearsal, they'll hear the person mess up their lyrics. If there are guest artists, then we'll teach a master class, and then they'll get to the Q&A and they'll talk about their most embarrassing moment on stage. And my favorite thing though is that a lot of the guest artists have been sharing mindfulness with the students. How to cope with rejection, and how to let go of things that you can't control, and to be really present in the moment. And you do this because you love it, but you can't necessarily control the outcome, but you can control how you react to the outcome. So throughout, the humanizing process of the guest artist being here, there's a natural, I think, relationship that occurs, and the people that come are so authentic in sharing, their true stories, and they always tell an embarrassing story. That's what the kids always want to hear. Tell me about, most embarrassing moment on stage, and it'll be something right on Broadway, center stage, and we love that. So, yeah, I think in general, I think what I noticed is the kids have learned early, wow, these are just people. They're people who are masters in their craft, but also some days they lose, some days aren't the greatest days ever. So if I know that now, maybe I can kind of let that part go and then just focus on the process and the purpose.
Absolutely. I love that idea of just focusing on the process and not as much the outcome. I think so often we're in a product and outcome oriented society, especially in school. I mean, school doesn't really, they care if you get the right answers or you do the thing the right way. They don't look as much about the journey getting there. So another reason why I feel like your guys' work is so important, because when you look at what sort of truly makes students sort of successful in whatever they want to do, ultimately, it's about the process and not so much the outcome. So you guys, I think, are doing work that goes so much further beyond the theater stuff. It really applies to everything in these kids' lives. And I think a lot of the work we do is, that's what we ultimately hope these kids will learn, that it's about more than just a final product. It's about the process and dealing with failure and rejection, and that knowing that that's part of the process. And it's not my life is over if I fail at this thing.
Yeah.
So we're coming up on almost a year now of COVID-19, and you guys have clearly thrived through that. I'd love to hear about how that, I'd love to hear the story about what happened. So there's lockdown. You guys are used to getting together every week. Tell me the story.
We had, funny enough, right before COVID really hit, we had decided that we should probably learn how to do like the Zoom platform, and possibly offer some online programming so that we could reach out, because we have a lot of, connections down in Connecticut where we grew up, and family, throughout the US, and nephews that are coming up. So anyway, we had actually worked with Dalton, who is working, our technology consultant, and we actually were almost pivoting before the pivot happened. So we were lucky enough that we were pretty prepared once it started to try some online programming. So we started right away by moving things online, and we did lots of Zoom camps, theater camps. We did a whole masterclass series because everybody in Broadway's out of work, so they were all happy to come be paid to have a teaching gig, and so we did a masterclass series, and that worked well for a while until Zoom fatigue kind of set in, and that's when we had this opportunity to do our first green screen production. That's a very interesting story how that came about. Kyle, I'll let you describe how that happened.
Well, so no, one of the great things we did, Zoom was started after they learned, and we were still out of school for that time. During the summer, we did a really awesome virtual camp, performing arts experience, where they had like 3 classes a day, and they could switch class. They were doing costuming, and they were working with technical design and with our production team. Because when we couldn't do the musicals, we kind of just pivoted and said, team, what could you teach? And the kids signed up, and it went really, really well. One of the camps we also did, because we were supposed to take the kids to see Les Miserables, and we were going to have some master classes with the principal players there. The resident director of the show happens to be a good friend of mine from college. And one of the young ladies we met in the class, who played Madame Thenardier, Michelle Dowdy, she was working with the kids. She worked with us, I think, 2 weeks over that summer. And then we loved her so much, we were going to work with her on a Hairspray camp, because she had done Hairspray on Broadway. And she said, my boyfriend has written a show. It was off Broadway, and we've been trying to figure out a way to do it with students. Can I give you the script to read? So we read this script, and it was interesting to us and zany, and we felt like it had a small enough cast that we could find a way to do it COVID safe. And then we took it to our team, and Justin Lehu, who's another also student right now, who's studying in Boston, and he's our technical director, came up with the idea of these green screen pods. And so what we were able to do was the kids would come in and lay down their audio tracks in a recording studio, one at a time, COVID safe. And then we would bring them in on the green screen pod, where they would sometimes do their dialogue live, but then they could lip to their songs and do choreography. And the kids loved it. They just loved having something to look forward to. You do the Zoom rehearsals during the week. Then you come in, you lay down your track, then maybe you come back the next week and you film. And it was a hit. Night of the Living Dead was a hit. Everyone loved it. They couldn't believe we were able to pull it off. And then that's when we pivoted to what you saw, Jonathan, which was our second production, Sounds of the Season. We got more kids. We went up to a cast of 50. And that's great because it's the come as you are thing, like she was talking about. So some kids are rapping, some kids are singing duets, some kids are doing scene work, and it's sort of a myriad of their talent.
That's phenomenal. I think I love hearing stories like this because this is a disaster the world hasn't seen in like 100 years. And I'm sure you guys have seen it. It's really easy for, being a parent, especially, was hard before there was a pandemic. Now it's even harder. And it's really easy for people to just close shop or say, all right, we're closed until this is over, whenever normal comes back. But I love this as a really amazing example of just resilience and saying, okay, we're going to continue making an impact in these kids' lives, and we're going to pivot, and we're going to make this thing awesome. And you're clearly doing that. It's so cool to watch. So 5 years later, and you're in the middle of a global, crisis. Hopefully, we're seeing the end of the tunnel. But how does it feel? I know that's a big question, but how does it feel to have been at to have been at this for 5 years and to have thrived through one of the greatest disasters the world's seen in human history?
We had rehearsal this weekend, and we're doing 2 of the virtual movie musicals coming up. Our little ones are doing High School Musical Junior, and then our high school is going to be doing The Drowsy Chaperone. And we had rehearsal for both this weekend, and to see the kids, the High School Musical Day was in person for the first day, and Drowsy was the next day online. But to see them coming in so prepared, so passionate, so excited, so appreciative to have an opportunity. And, in those moments, I'm realizing they forget that there's a pandemic. They have something to focus on. They have a goal. They have an aligned goal. They're still getting a sense of community. They know they'll get some moments in person together. They know that they have an individual responsibility because only one person can go in that booth at a time. And every single one of them has to go in there and lay down their voices. And so, to me, I was been so grateful to be able to be working during this time, to be able to focus on them, to be able to find ways to still have impact and to educate them. And I tell you, they have been walking in such gratitude in a way that I haven't even seen this year because, maybe before they were over scheduled. And now it just seems like such a golden opportunity. And they just dive in 100%.
It is. We feel a lot of gratitude. And I think it's only been recently that we've started to look back and say, wow, we really did a lot this year. But we've always been different in that the other theater companies in the community are wonderful. They produce live events for adults, and they also have a children's sector, and they have their own space, most of them. Or they have their set spaces and their set seasons. And that's never been something that we've been able to do yet because we haven't had our one location. And we are looking for a theater. We are going to be trying to find a big home location. And that's a huge project coming up. But in the meantime, we have always had to pivot. We have always had to find spaces. When we did the very first full-length musicals, we didn't have a team together. Kyle and I didn't know much about lighting or set design or costumes. We didn't even have a theater. So we've always had to get ahead of ourselves and create and work. It was more about the process and the program and giving the kids what they deserve and what they need and what they want. So that when we got to this, time, it sort of was second nature for us to like, okay, well, we have to change. What are we going to do next? What's big, something big, exciting that we can do that will make them interested, that will engage the students and what do they want? So, it almost feels like it hasn't really changed in a way, because we're always working on the next thing. Unfortunately, sometimes it's hard because we'll have parents reach out. What are you going to do next summer? What are you going to do here? We're like, we don't know yet. We can't figure it out because we can only do a little bit at a time. But it's sort of worked in our favor this year. And I think we're just full of gratitude that we were able to align what's needed or what's wanted out there with what we can provide at this time. So
Yeah, it sounds like you're already used to thinking very much outside the box. So this is just another opportunity to think outside the box, and
yeah.
it majorly paid off, for the students who have this unique and remarkable opportunity.
And when you see the collective talent level growing and increasing, no matter what perspective they have, like if they're just coming for the community building, collectively their talent just continues to grow, and you're thinking and always wondering about opportunities and ways to make them shine, things that are the next test or the next level for them to navigate through. And they seem to love these, love these virtual movie musicals, and so their skill and their passion about it is increasing.
That is amazing. So looking ahead at the next 5 years, what's your vision for Break a Leg in the community?
Well, we need a theater. We do. We have such loyal families, and we have such a great following, and we have amazing community partners now. So many windows and doors and opportunities are opening for our students, and their talent is starting to speak for itself. People
Yes.
saying to me, "Wow, can your kids come here? Can your kids do this?" And I think the next thing we need is a theater so that we can produce seasons of work for them and know that you can set a technical calendar that's going to give opportunity to the myriad of students we have in many, many different ways, and continue also our pipeline of bringing up masters in their craft to also align and educate as well.
Yeah, and also as Kyle mentioned before, a lot of the alumni that we've had so far are starting to work for us, and I think we intend to keep that going. We've had a lot of juniors and seniors who have gotten into performing arts programs all around, and yeah, it's been amazing. And we have so many students are going off to hone their craft, and a lot of them are going to be close by too. So we're excited to maybe engage them in running some new branches and new programming, in other areas. Hopefully having a headquarters in Plymouth or somewhere down in the South Shore.
Demand is there for a college program, so that's our next step, and we'll continue to work with our students of all ages. Our junior productions are just remarkable. Their skill and their craft level, I was blown away with. I didn't know how I'd be with the younger ones, but now I realize that it's just age is just a number in any direction. So I'm just curious to see how the evolution continues, and hopefully we can match the demand and the talent.
Love it. I'm just thinking your teachers from when you were in children's theater so long ago must be so proud of you right now. And I also love it that you have people who are graduating and then coming back. So it's almost like the love is spreading sort of a thing, or you're inspiring the next generation. And any of these folks that you're graduating, might end up starting their own kind of a thing one day. And I think this is how we change the world.
It is.
I love it. Huge fans of you guys. If somebody's listening to this and wants to get their kids involved with Break a Leg, what should their next step be?
Well, you can go to our website, which is Break a Leg Theater, ER for theater, not the old English spelling, .com. And you can subscribe at our website, and then you'll be the first to know whenever new programming pops up, because we do have, every month we have pop-up opportunities. And also you'll be able to know when our movie musicals are going to come out so that you can buy a ticket and come to those. And also, yeah, we would just always have opportunities that keep evolving. As you know, it's the pandemic, so it's hard to plan too far out, especially without having your own space. But I promise you we'll have amazing things coming this summer. And we have a great Broadway star coming the end of this month, Abby Mueller. So she's in 6 right now, and she's going to come and teach a masterclass on belting. So, yeah.
Love it. Thank you guys so much for being on the podcast today. This has been such a wonderful, inspiring, heartwarming conversation. Thank you so much for the time.
Thank you for having us. We really appreciate it.
Yes, and thank you for all you do as well.
Yes.
Oh, pleasure. Thank you so much for being part of this. Thank you so much to all of our listeners out there. Again, this is South Shore Piano, the official podcast of the South Shore Piano School. If you enjoyed this, do hit the subscribe button on your podcast app, or if you're checking us out on the YouTube channel, hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so that you're among the first to find out about new episodes as they're released. We publish new episodes every Monday and Friday. I'm Jonathan Roberts, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time.